Trump's time is just starting, says Raoul. There will be big gains. Brad Garlinghouse will be in front of the Senate Banking Committee on Wednesday. We also have new information about how many smart contracts have been set up on the XRPL's EVM sidechain. The number is truly amazing. On the XRP system, we will also look at some of the best DeFi projects. We'll talk about tokenization, a new study, and the XRP ledger, which is the most talked about tokenization tool. At the end, there's some news. You need to see it if you're interested in Ripple, Ondo, or Oasis Pro. Let's begin with Brad Garlinghouse. The man himself says, "It's an honor to be asked to speak to the Senate Banking Committee this Wednesday about the need to pass crypto market legislation. Thank you, Senators Tim Scott, Loomis, and Giolagio. You are the head of the GOP Bank Committee. As the heads of the subcommittee for digital assets, it's important that you lead this hearing and have been a champion for the crypto business for years to getting us to this important point. Listen, crypto regulation is coming, and we want people like Brad Garlinghouse to help set the stage for legislation by telling Congress exactly what the industry needs to do to grow in the US. That has to be said in a better way. I'm going to work on that. Yes, the Trump 2017 loop is happening again. Raoul, pal, listen to this. Okay, the Trump era in 2017. We have talked about this. When Trump took office, the markets changed. In the same way, people are afraid of taxes. Everything went up except the dollar. And this time the same thing took place. I mean, people are people. That's right. The dollar got ripped off at the end of 2016. In the back end of 2024, it tore. When the dollar rips, banking conditions get tighter, which affects markets and the economy 3 months later. This makes me wonder, why don't we have the correction in the first quarter? All of this was shown as part of M2. Anyway, we said at the time that he was going for a weak dollar because we had been watching this closely before the dollar hit its peak. They said they want the dollar to be weak, and fuck me, it has been weak. It has been a very big problem. Now, this isn't a weakness in the structure that will never go away. That will happen when the rules of the game change. The lessons and cycle weakness being pushed by Trump are still going strong. And that's a great win behind markets and risk. A lot of big things are coming up. On the XRP EVM sidechain, almost 1,400 smart contracts were set up in the first week. The knowledge back here was hard for me to understand. As well, I'd like to know which of your XRP projects with smart contracts are getting the most attention, and I wanted to know more about this. If you don't know what an EVM sidechain is, Ripple and Pierce's technology have made an XRP ledger sidechain that works with this type of Ethereum virtual machine. This makes it possible for developers to create and use Solidity smart contracts, which includes Ethereum, dApps, DeFi, NFTs, and more. Also, XRP is used as the gas coin. To give you some background, uses wrapped XRP as his main gas coin. Interoperability is very important here. The Axler bridge connects the sidechain to the main XRP log. This lets assets move between XRP, Ethereum, and dozens of other blockchains. If companies want to move to or build in the XRP space, they should know that we have a great XRP army and family here. The money will flow because of this. This will bring in new people, and this is what we've been missing for the past few years. So it talks about DeFi methods that are built in. It talks about rules for giving money and farming for yield. I'm not going to talk about that. Please take a moment to read that if you want to. This article talks about cloud mining and projects that make money without doing anything. DRML Miner is a project that creates a simulated cloud mining model for XRP. It lets users make XRP through structured mining contracts. If that interests you, please go look at it. You need to do your own study, of course. I haven't looked at all of these tasks yet. It was fun to see what AI would come up with when I asked it to find the coolest XRP projects. It also says PMF Crypto, which is a new company. PFM Crypto offers smart cloud mining plans that pay out XRP every day. Of course, you want to be sure that the person in charge of this job is a real person. Be careful if you don't see a team or anyone else participating. It talks about tokenization and asset tokenization. New features in smart contracts are letting projects tokenize real-world assets like art, commodities, and land, so they can be traded and programmed on the XRP ledger. It talks about coins that don't change value. It also talks about First Ledger, Magnetic, MOA, Finance, and STEKKX, which are some of the best DeFi apps. These are some of the best DeFi apps that are already live and being developed on the XRP LED. I've heard of these two, but not this one or this one. They offer services from decentralized markets, liquidity provisioning through staking, and more. It talks about why these projects are getting so much attention, how they work with EVM, how they handle cross-chain funding, how they're expanding DeFi, how they're coming up with new ways to make passive income, and how they're tokenizing financial assets. It's also my pleasure to look over this report. Coming up, a tokenization boom. We think that the trend toward tokenizing assets will speed up in tokenized shares will likely be regulated for the first time in 2025, according to our predictions. Money market funds have the most assets, with $30 billion, making them the leader in terms of size. I'm making another movie with market cap multipliers right now. It would make a huge difference if you added $5 or $10 billion to the XRP system right now. The market value of that $5 billion alone is $500 billion to $1 trillion. Really, it could go 200 to 600 times the amount of money that's coming in. So if we can start adding 5, 50, or $100 billion worth of real assets to the XRP system, that much value could really boost it. People are also interested in building on the XRP ledger and tokenization because it already has tools for tokenization built in. The XRP ledger has a built-in DX that lets you issue, manage, and trade tokenized assets without having to make your own smart contracts. This makes tokenizing different kinds of money easier and better for businesses. It also talks about mortgages, stocks, commodities, and government bonds. In a moment, we will talk about bank bills. Also, why people believe in the XRP ledger and turning real-world assets into tokens. It's an easy and cheap way to do business. It's safe, and you can get closure in 3 to 5 seconds. Safety and following the rules is also something that institutions like. For institutions, keeping their customers' assets and records safe is the most important thing. The XRP ledger has strong compliance tools such as issuer-defined authorization, the ability to freeze blocks on the chain, and thorough metadata for assertions. These features assist organizations in following rules and keeping control over tokenized assets. It also talks about how institutions can adopt use cases from the real world. Here are some examples. Putting over $200 million worth of regulated real estate assets, like fixed income and equity instruments, on the XRP ledger as tokens. This will increase access to global markets like Mercado, Bitcoin, car finance, which we'll talk about in a moment, and US Treasuries. This is a market worth $29 trillion, which is almost $30 trillion. In the United States, the bond market is worth about $50 trillion and around $140 trillion around the world. Think about getting 5% to 10% of $140 trillion on the XRP system. That's what we might be chatting about here. You must get this, right? Institutions can only choose from a certain number of options. They're not going to use a brand new cryptocurrency that was made 6 months or even 6 weeks ago. They have to test that thing in a sandbox for years before they trust it. What do you have? There's Ethereum, XRP, Solana, Ondo, and maybe a few more. Oh, and HBR has been added. Let me say that, and I think XLM as well. These are the blockchains that banks will use to turn this value into tokens. Just how much are we going to get? How long will it take us to get it? I'm only looking at those two things at the moment. I just talked about how business interest is growing. Banks like JP Morgan and Bank of America are looking into tokenized assets, and XRP is set up to be a leader in the framework for these new ideas. Don't forget that Ripple and Bank of America have worked together for years already. Bank of America has inventions that include XRP. I haven't seen any other Bank of America inventions that use crypto assets. It's not that it's not there. I haven't seen that myself. Please tell me about them in the comments if you know of any. I'd love to learn more about that, and now that I think about it, I might look into that later. Another big thing that most chains don't have is a decentralized exchange that is built in. The built-in DAX in XRP lets you trade tokenized assets 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It has features like automatic market makers and efficient ordering routing. This makes the market more liquid and makes things easier for both users and buyers. Since the beginning of fractional ownership and accessibility, people trying to make it in the world who don't have millions of dollars to spend or put in haven't been able to buy half a stock or a quarter of a stock, right?